Everybody, welcome back. I have a little bit of a idea kind of video for today. So I'm going to get started. As I've been working through the Wings of Fire books, I'm reading them slowly this time. It's mostly the second time. It's the third time I'm reading the series for at least the first book. I've read that one 3 times. But as I was reading the books, I was able to take in some ideas that I'm going to do in 2 different videos that I have for the series. Just in the event that 2ET Sutherland happens to be listening, or in general, these just might be some fun ideas. Obviously, I know a lot of work goes into writing a book, so these are more ideas in general. So, this video I'm going to cover is ideas separated into the different tribes I'll go through individually of different characters that I feel like should have some more info about them. Some books that I would love to see in the series. And I'll detail whether I think that a main series book would be a good option, maybe a winglet or a Legends book, These are all just my ideas, by the way. It's not that I think necessarily some of these characters will get books, and it doesn't matter, It's just some ideas. Some books I think would be interesting to see her make. So, I'll get started with Mudwings, because I tend to think of things in the Wings of Fire series from Mudwings forward. I will also be including, before I get started, sometimes I may not say a character, but rather I may say I'd like a book on a situation that has been mentioned or occurred, that kind of thing. So I'll be sure to mention that in each section as well, where that would be located. Alright, so Mudwings. So we've only had one Mudwing POV, and that's Clay. I think that we probably should have another Mudwing character, though I feel like any of the ones we would be likely to get, I'm not necessarily interested in reading about. So, I'm going to list a few. And some of these tribes are going to have more characters than others. Mudwings probably have more than, because there's not a lot of characters of Mudwings we know. But I have quite a few on the Mudwing list. So, anyway, Queen Moorhen. I want to know more about Mudwing royalty. I honestly don't care if it's Queen Moorhen. It could be one of her siblings. It could be in the past. It could be in the future. I don't care. I want some royal Mudwing insight. I want to know how they work in the courts, how they organize themselves. Icewing Society, in particular, to me, always has such an interesting way of organizing themselves. It's not particularly great, but that system doesn't extend down to the poorer families. And Clay is stated to live in the poorer district of the Mud Kingdom. Or where his family lived there. That's where he was from. Born, I guess. Or laid. Or whatever it is. But anyway, that's where he was from. So we don't know anything about some of those upper level Mudwing citizens. We don't know anything about them. So I'd really love to learn a little bit more about them. Queen Moorhen seems like a really good one. Another idea I had, though I'm not sure how this... I'm not sure if it would end up working out, but I'd love to know about the situation Chameleon mentions in Escaping Peril, where he talks about the Mudwings not having an heir a few hundred years ago. I'm not exactly sure when that occurred, because we don't have a good timestamp on it, but I'd love to know that situation, and that would satisfy my need for a royalty book as well, And it doesn't have to be from a royal, just a character that's near the royals. I want to know how Mudwing royalty works and how they organize themselves. I'm just interested in that kind of book, so I'm not particularly picky on who. It's just mostly, I think that's something that this series could really benefit from. Some more insight on that. The other character I'd love to read about is Asha. I think that's how you say her name. I used to read it Asha, but I think it might be Asha. But she basically did not make it. She's kind of like Havager, except she didn't get any POV at all, unlike Havager did. So I'd like to know about her. I'd like to know how she died. I'd like to know her personality. She seemed pretty open and optimistic and caring. I want to know about her. So I'd love a winglet on her. I guess I should have said, for the Mudwing royalty, I honestly don't care. Any content on that I'd take. For Asha, I think a winglet would be fine. Just cover it a little bit for her story. Maybe if there was like a winglets book on all the Guardians, that would be cool. And the last one I have for this is, yes, I know people really like Umber, but honestly, I don't necessarily want to read about Umber. I want to read about Sora. Sora is really interesting to me as a character, and she's not likely to get the POV for book 15 after the Dangerous Gift, but I have a feeling it would be Umber. But I really think Sora is the character I'd like to read about. She's pretty quiet and shy, and she has a lot of trauma, and I'd like to see how she feels about what she did. And it's also interesting to me that she was able to hide her mind, unintentionally, of course, but she was able to hide herself from Moon, which I thought was interesting. But I want to get some insight into how she thinks and perceives what she did, and have a little bit of a redemption arc that, I know she had hurt, but I'd like to see her come to terms with what she did and how she feels about that. Not Umber. Umber's a sweetheart, but I don't see him having any areas to grow in, per se. He's a good guy, it's not like he needs anything in particular to grow in, or some unresolved trauma. It would be mostly for his POV. I'd still read it, but I think Sora would be far more interesting. And that's it for Mudwings. Sora, I really am serious about having a main series book. Like book 15, an Arc 4 book, I'd love. Just give me Sora. That's the Mudwing I want for the main series next. Alright, let's move on to Seawings. Seawings, I would say I have less need for. There's not quite as many Seawings I necessarily am like, yes, I want a book on that dragon. Because we have 3 right now, as it stands. Fathom and Darkstalker Legends, and then we have Tsunami and Turtle. I like all of them fine. I'm not particularly in the main series, I don't necessarily think there's one I would like. So most of these are just little short stories. Plus, I think Auklet in particular has probably a high chance of probably having her own main series book at some point, so she's not on the list. Because I could see her having a book in the future, whether I like it or not. So anyway, Orca. Orca. Give me an Orca winglet, please. I have questions. She's like Dark Turtle. I have questions. I want to know about her more. I want to know, what drove her to be... Like all of them say it's because, her soul was rotten. But, we know that's fake now. I want to know what drove her to the point that she made a murderous statue in the hatchery. I want to know who Orca is and what she thinks. I think, too, it's... Fierce Teeth's winglet really made me care about her, even though I don't necessarily like her or agree with her. And I kind of want an Orca one to do the same for me there. Orca's a bad person, or dragon, but at the same time, I want to know what gave her that, what put her that far off the edge that she thought to do that. I really want some insight on her. Plus, the way other dragons talk about her makes her sound like she was pretty nice in life. That's the last thing they thought she'd do. So I have a lot of questions. The next one I have is Gil, and this one I would just say is another winglet. I want to see him, he's portrayed in Turtle's prologue to his book, and he seems like just a very generally nice, agreeable, peacemaking kind of guy. I don't care to read about that Gil. I want to read about the Gil that got captured, was in the arena, and slowly was driven insane due to dehydration. Which might be kind of dark, but I would like to read about it. I think it would be interesting to see what happened there. And, you know, like, how aware he was. You know, because I kind of wonder sometimes, like, did he recognize Tsunami when she was in the arena with him? Because it stated that Tsunami and Coral look quite similar. So, I'm pretty interested in, you know, having some of his POV, just in a winglet, though. And the other, I have two more, both winglets. The other one I had an idea for was Whirlpool. And the reason I want a Whirlpool winglet is because I don't think Whirlpool was set up to be a great character. So I would kind of think maybe a winglet could save him. Maybe. Once again, this would be kind of maybe like a Fierce Teeth one where he's not great, but you kind of learn about him. I want to know how he became so close to the Queen, how his ambition spiked, and you know, what drove him to that level, because I am interested. I'm not sure how old he is. You know, Coral acts like he's pretty young, old, you know, but I'm not sure. I'm just interested in learning about him a bit more. As it stands, he's really not explored that much, so I'd be kind of interested. And the last one is, I would like sorry, if I say novella sometimes, it's because Warrior Cats does novellas of this. But every time I mean to say winglet, just so you know. Is Pearl. From the Legends book. Fathom's sister. I would love to have a winglet from her perspective, taking the throne without anyone really advising her. She kind of went from this bratty, aloof, standoffish character into being a fairly good queen, I would say. At least what we saw of her. Maybe not a good sister at that point, but a good queen nonetheless. And I'd like to know how it is that Fathom ended up being the one whose children ended up having the royal bloodline. Because I am curious. Like, did Pearl die? Did she accept her brother back with open arms? Was that unintentional? I want to know about all of that. And I think she'd have some room to grow, but a winglet would be fine for me. I'm just curious. Okay, moving on to Rainwings, which doesn't have much on the list, because I don't necessarily care about Kinkajou actually having a book. I think a winglet on her maybe would be okay, but I honestly don't really care. So I didn't put her on the list. Instead, I have Tamarin, and talking main series book Tamarin. I want a Blind Dragon POV so much, with no romantic drama, please. I just want Tamarin so much to be a part of the main series. I want to see every bit in detail of how she thinks and feels about the world, and I think Tui is the perfect author to pull off a blind POV. I mean, I think the Warriors authors did a really good job with Jay Feather pulling that off, so I'd love to see what they could do with Tamarin. I love Tamarin. I think she's so interesting. She's got so much sass, deep down in her, and she's so insightful. I think she'd be really great to pull off a book. And we haven't had a Rainwing POV since Glory ever. Glory's the only one, so I'd really, really like another Rainwing to get some POV time. And I think Tamarin, to me, is an interesting option. The other one I have, and for this one, I would say is definitely a Legends book. I want some Royal Rainwing POV, but not recent Royal. Royal before the whole Grander, I think it's Grander was the queen, decided that her daughters weren't good enough to rule the throne, and basically just dissolved all that part of the tribe. I don't care if it's Queen Anaconda. I don't care if it's Grandeur. I'd want to know how they operate, how Rainwings operate, and I guess how they operated, how Glory's trying to operate them again. And I want to know how all of that was lost so quickly, really. Only maybe a few generations. And I just want some insight on that. And, I don't care particularly who, but I feel like that's probably the only royalty at this point that we don't have a lot of direct insight into. So, yeah. Want some of that for sure. That's it for Rainwings. Then, Nightwings. Nightwings have, by far, the most POVs. We've got lots of Nightwings. I think Foe Slayer had part of a winglet. Fierce Teeth, Deathbringer. Love my Deathbringer boy, but he's already had his winglet. I would have preferred him to have a main series book myself, but, you know, he had a winglet. It was a good winglet. Then we also had Darkstalker and Clearsight, and Starflight and Moonwatcher. Some of my favorite POV characters, for sure, but I don't really have a lot on the list anymore because a lot of them are covered already. Fate Speaker is the only one left that, well, I guess, okay, I have like 2 on here. No, 3. Sorry, 3. Fate Speaker is the one I would be cool with her having a main series book, or I'd take a winglet. I just want to see if she actually has a power, or how she kind of deludes herself into maybe having a power. I just like to see a little bit more into that, not just like prologue, epilogue material. Like, given a little bit more time with her. Yeah, I'm not picky about where, just a little bit more time, not in some kind of prologue, epilogue thing. I also really would like to see about, I know this will sound weird, but Maros here. I actually think he'd be interesting. I would prefer that either in some kind of Legends book, and I can explain what I mean by a Legends book, because that probably sounds weird, but I would really love to see his POV in some kind of Legends book, or a really long winglet, because Maros here he's weird to me. He's grumpy and horribly rude for a Nightwing. Even, like, he makes the other Nightwings look like really kind night dragons. Which is interesting to me, that, like, every dragon's like, oh, you know Maros here? Woo, terrible guy, right? And that's always bizarre to me, because I'm like, why is he like that? Like, I am curious. Is it how he grew up? Is it influences in his life? Or is it just him? I'm interested in that. I find it interesting that he was chosen to deliver the prophecy. Is that just by his name? Who knows? I also find it weird that he's kind of trying to be like the king of the Nightwing tribe in the books. I'm interested to know how he got so much influence. For once in my life, I'd actually like to know how he views Secret Keeper a bit more, because that's not really touched on much, and I kind of like to know how he sees that. It's just interesting to me. Not like, you know, a lot of detail on that. I'd like to know more about maybe more of his younger years and that kind of thing. You know, it's hard to tell. He's such a mysterious character. I want to know more about him. And the last one that I really, really want to know about is Queen Battlewinter. Oh man, she would be at the top of my list. I really, really, really want to know about her. Why in the world was she fighting an Icewing? How in the world did it freeze her like that on the inside? I get her mouth was open, but like, I want to know how that happened. And I want to know all the details. I want to know what she, you know, what it feels like for her. I want to know everything about Queen Battlewinter. And that would be fine in a winglet, I think. But yeah, Battlewinter, man, I want to know about her so much. Okay. So that's Nightwings. And now I'm going to talk about Sandwings. I'll come back to hybrids later. You know, because technically, like, Sunny was the next POV we got. But I'm going to do Sandwings first. So Sandwings, we technically have 2. Because Sunny is not a full Sandwing, you know. So we have Kibley. And he's one of my favorites. I love Kibley. And then we have Six Claws, and I love Six Claws too, a lot. But I'd love more Sandwing POVs. For one thing, I'd like a Thorn POV. I'm interested in a lot about her, and most of it doesn't really have to do with Stone Mover at all. I'd like to know some of that, but I want to know Thorn's upbringing a lot. I want to know how she was raised, because she seems particularly, like, interesting to me. Like a lot of dragons that grew up in the Scorpion Den, which I'm inferring that's where she grew up, didn't have those ideals as her. They're very cutthroat and sneaky, and she doesn't seem to have any of that. And I want to know why. Is her parentage? What is that? Some influence in her life, I'm sure, but I want to know all about it. And yeah, cover the stone mover thing. I really want to know how she organized the Outclaws. I'm just interested in all of that. I think the Winglet could probably cover it. Six Claws novella, or Six Claws Winglet, sorry, covered a lot in a short amount of time. So I think a Winglet could take care of Thorn pretty well. I'm just interested in her. And the Jerboa. Sorry. I'm gonna remember how to pronounce the name, which is odd because I should know that. But Jerboa and Jerboa the Second. Jerboa the Second, I'm actually seriously would love a main series book on. I was kind of rooting for her to have book 14 as a Jerboa the Second book. I felt like it was kind of leading up to that, and I'm a little disappointed still that it's Snowfall, because I feel like we're gonna have two just grumpy characters back to back. But, it's interesting, it's the first Queen POV. But back to Sandwings. Jerboa the Second, I really would love to see a main series book. If book 15 is not about Sora and not about Sky, I want it to be about Jerboa the Second. But I'd also like to read a book, maybe a Winglet, on Jerboa. Or at least in Jerboa the Second's book, covered Jerboa on some level. Just a little bit. But I want to know more about her. Then I have any of the Sandwing sisters that were vying for the throne. I particularly would like to learn more about Blister. This could be like just a Winglet booklet. Something probably like a little bit like Runaway was. Or it was split into multiple POVs for one Winglet, but make it a little longer. Just with the Sandwing sisters. I'd like to learn more about how they each think and operate a bit, but just from their POVs and not from others. And I'd also read a booklet on, a Winglet on Smolder too. I think he'd be pretty interesting. And that's all the Sandwings I have. So then, Icewings. Icewings I'm about... on. There's a couple in here. Right now we have Winter, and we are getting Snowfall. Her book has not come out yet, but Snowfall will be the next POV. I am about sick up to my eyeballs and Royal Icewing POVs. I think Snowflake would be the only non-royal that got a POV, but she might as well have been royals, in my opinion. I want dragons not in the circles, basically. If we have to have another Icewing POV, I want it to be someone who is completely not royalty. Between Arctic and Snowflake and Winter, and I'm just tired of the royal. I know how their royalty operates, and I don't necessarily, I don't like it at all. It's a messed up system. So I'm interested in learning about the commoner Icewings. Basically, I'd really like to know how, like Havature, I think that's how you say his name, but I'd really like to learn about him. I think he'd be really, really interesting to hear all of his story, because he's technically the only true Icewing in the Talons of Peace. I want to know why. I want to know who he is he a commoner? Which I'm assuming he must be, because the royalty doesn't have any kind of scandal, sort of, on Havature, or if they do, they don't talk about it. I want to know about him. Even if he ended up being royalty, I'd still read it because I think he's interesting. But I'd also like a royalty, or non-royalty POV. And that's basically it for Icewings. It might be cool to read some kind of hard about some of the old Animus Icewings doing their gifts, but, you know, those are the ones I'm really interested in. And then Skywings. And I will not do one on Sky or Cliff, because I feel like those characters are probably fairly likely to have their own main series books someday. And I'd love either one, especially one from Sky, to be quite honest. Sky would probably be my top pick. I could see him getting book 15 as well, especially with Dragon Slayer, how that went down. I'd really love to see a Sky POV. He'd be a breath of fresh air after the 2 grumpy characters we're gonna have. But, and probably non-romantic, which would be amazing. Finally, no romance. But anyway, I won't do that. But really, we only have Peril at this point, so another Skywing would be nice. Scarlet is high on my list. I think a winglet or part of a Legends book would be really cool to have for Scarlet. I'd love, love, love to learn about Scarlet more and how she thinks. Because Scarlet is weird. Scarlet's like malicious on a level that's almost unnecessary and odd. Like I would say like some of the queens are particularly kind of gruesome. Like when Byrne was ruling as a quote-unquote queen, she was just bad. But, like, Scarlet just seems on a weird level gruesome. And I want to know why, because I don't take it the other Skywings were like that. I'm just interested in quite a bit of that with her. Why she's like that. And I think that's pretty much it. I would take a winglet on Kestrel or leave it, because I have another book that I want to talk about later, which is like my top book, but I don't know which category to put it in because he's complicated. So Kestrel I could have or not. I think she's pretty much covered on a lot of areas. Now that we know Sky is alive, I maybe a little bit more than I used to think I'd like one on Kestrel, but you know, I could do that. Then we have the Silkwings. Right now we have one Silkwing, and that's Blue. Blue was great. I would really like to learn more about Io, because she's pretty feisty and interesting and only shows up for like a little bit in the book. And I'd like to learn more about her. It's not Swordtail, not Luna. I don't really care about them too much. But Io really is interesting to me. I'd also like to read a book, and for Io, I really think a main series book would be awesome. As far as a winglet goes, I think a winglet would be great. But then again, I could also really, really like a Legends book on the Tree Wars with the with Queen Wasp, Queen Monarch, and Queen Sequoia taking the POVs. Just some details without all the propaganda and lies from years getting in the way of what actually happened in some detail. Kind of like Eyewitness, kind of like how Darkstalker went back and explained it all as when it happened. Kind of like that for the Tree Wars. It's just interesting. Then Hivewings. Hivewings, man. I have questions about Hivewings. Hivewings, like, right now we only have Cricket, and that's it. And I'm really disappointed. I really would like a Queen Wasp prologue or epilogue at some point. I just want to know, like, I have questions about Queen Wasp. Like, I take it she was always kind of a jerk, but, you know, is she totally mind-controlled right now? All the time? Like, I am really interested in her. Honestly, I think a part of a Legends book or a winglet on her would be amazing. I also think one on Lady Scarab would be great. A winglet. I think a winglet on Lady Jewel would be great, because I have a theory about Lady Jewel being the next queen of the Hivewings, probably. And I also would really like a winglet. I think Bumblebee will eventually have a main series book, so she's not included either. I think they're setting her up to be another main character. Kind of like how Kibley was. Like, he was introduced as the young kid pretty early on, and then later on he became his own character. I have a feeling this one's probably, Bumblebee's probably set up for that. But Malachite or Katydid, I'm interested in them. I want to know exactly what went down with Cricket's egg. It's interesting to me, and I'd really like to know about that. Malachite would probably be my top pick because we don't know much about him, but Katydid would be cool too. There's not a lot of characters that we know that are Hivewings, so you know, I want some insight on them more. I am interested in how they work, especially a little bit before they became, you know, the bad guys. Then Leafwings. Leafwings. I don't have a lot. Right now we only have Sundew, but I'm not. Leafwings are a little boring to me because they don't really have much going for them. I have a feeling Willow could get a book, and I don't necessarily like Willow's great in that book. It's fine, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of her necessarily having a main series book, so she's not on the list. Queen Sequoia is the one I would probably be the most interested in. I really would like a Legends book, or even a winglet would be fine on her. Hazel could be set up to be a main character. I could see too, but I don't really care to know about her. So I guess it's just Queen Sequoia. Alright. So then I have one dragon, and I don't know which category to put him in because I kind of want him to be in all the categories. But if there was one character you could ask me right now to have a winglet on, it would be Chameleon. Chameleon, I want to know about, and I want to know about who he is in all his forms. I really, really want to learn more about Chameleon. Chameleon, he's such a cool, funny little villain. I kind of like him. He's my second favorite villain in the series. You know, I just want to know how he got kicked out. I have lots of headcanons about him. I'm really, really interested in learning more about Chameleon because I think he'd be interesting, and I'm just really curious because I just don't buy that he's gone. I think he's one of those villains that's going to come back, and I even have some headcanons I should probably do a video about before the Dangerous Gift comes out, because I wonder sometimes if he's behind all this, but you know, I don't really know that. I just think he probably didn't let the last bits of his scroll get stolen. He doesn't seem that stupid to me. In my opinion, maybe he is, I don't know. I don't know much about him. No one does. But I think he's interesting, and I'd really like to learn more about him, but I want a piece of his story from all of his different forms, so I think a winglet wouldn't cover it for me. I really think a Legends book would be great. And honestly, I'd like a Legend-sized book on all about him. More like a Warrior Cat Super Edition does. But either that or a really long winglet would work for me. But yeah, Chameleon would be super cool. I guess the other one I forgot to mention back on the Sandwings section, sorry about that, is Onyx. Yeah, I know that's going back to the Sandwings, but I forgot. I really would like to learn about Onyx. She'd probably be my second pick, actually. Don't know why I forgot about her. That was dumb. But I really would like to know about Onyx a bit. She seems like just such a very private dragon that I kind of want to learn more about her, especially because Moon can read her mind most of the time. So I'm really interested in learning how she thinks and, you know, how she got connected with Vulture. And I feel like I don't necessarily want a POV of Vulture, but if she had a POV, it would probably cover everything I want to know about Vulture. And I want to know how all of that went down. And I also want to hear Palm's death in detail. Maybe that's a little bit blech, but I do want to hear about it. And yeah, I just want to know about Onyx. So those would actually be my top 2. If I had to pick a top 3rd, it would probably be Orca. But yeah, Chameleon, Onyx, and Orca would probably be like, you just sit me down and tell me, like, she would write down those 3 books. Those would be the ones I'd pick. And lastly, hybrids. The only hybrid I really would like to see a winglet on, or a part of a Legends book, is Whiteout. Whiteout, I would take a winglet on, and I think too we could pull off whatever it is, neurological kind of thing that Whiteout has. I think she could pull off writing that really well. But yeah, Whiteout's the only one I got. I would take a Legends book on how the Nightwings relocated to the island, how they found that. From Thoughtful, Whiteout, and maybe Listener. But yeah, Whiteout's the only one I think. I would take or leave Peacemaker. Honestly, I'd be fine if he just developed kind of on the side with other characters. Because he is his own dragon, whether or not we like it. And, some little bit development. I could maybe remotely see him getting a POV, but, which would actually be kind of funny if he had, like, some memories or some things about some things, and he's like, wonder where that came from. Oh, well. It'd be kind of funny, but, yeah, I don't care about that. So, yeah, just Whiteout for hybrids. And I think that pretty much covers it. Those are just some ideas for POV characters that I think they would be fun to read about, if I could pick myself. But I think that's all the tribes. Anyway, so those are just all my ideas. If you have an idea for a POV you'd like to see, just leave it in the comments section. I'd love to hear about it because I'm always interested in what other people think. And like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!